them as an obstacle to peace. But Sharon pushed on.
First time I ever met him was on a settlement in 1979 in the West Bank, where he came roaring up the hill in a Jeep, pulled out his maps, he loves maps, and started talking about security. And he said, if you raise a child so that he knows every valley and every hill and every spring and every stone, he will consider the land his, and he'll fight to defend it.
And when Palestinians claimed East Jerusalem as a future capital,
Jerusalem will never be negotiated.
His political career appeared over when an Israeli inquiry found that as defense minister, he was indirectly responsible for the massacre of hundreds of Palestinian civilians at the Sabra and Shatila refugee camps in Lebanon. They were killed by Christian Lebanese militia, Israel's allies, and the inquiry found Sharon did nothing to stop it. But the 90s would see his political rebirth, first as foreign minister and ultimately as leader of his Likud party. Sharon then made his controversial visit to the Temple Mount. Muslims call it the noble sanctuary. It is sacred to both. A wave of violent protests followed. Palestinians say it was the start of the Second Intifada.
He felt that slowly the right of the Jews even to visit temple is slipping away. So he took an act to demonstrate that.
As attacks on Israelis increased, and after Yasser Arafat walked away from what many considered Israel's best ever peace offer at Camp David, Sharon was elected in a landslide. Later, he was asked how he made such a stunning comeback from the political grave.
Maybe they tried to bury me too early. And maybe not deep enough. What can I tell you?
As the violence increased, he sent tanks and soldiers into Palestinian towns, ordered assassinations of Palestinian militant leaders.
I think Sharon will be seen in history as one who has perpetrated most cruelties on the Palestinians.
But early in his second term, Sharon suddenly made what was to many a surprising announcement.
Israel will not remain in all the places where it is today.
The father of the settlement said for Israel to survive as a Jewish state, it would have to give up all of Gaza and parts of the West Bank. By the summer of 2005, Sharon made good on his promise. Despite death threats and demonstrations, he forced 8,000 settlers to leave Gaza. A few weeks later, another 4 settlements in the West Bank were evacuated. But Sharon wasn't finished. Fed up with a small group of politicians within his own party who opposed the Gaza pullout, by year's end, Sharon had jumped ship, leaving the Likud and forming a new centrist party called Kadima. Early polling showed Sharon heading for a 3rd term, but many began to think what seemed to be unthinkable before. What would Israel be like without Ariel Sharon? John Vos, CNN.